Hi friend. So, I've been very apprehensive about making this video just because it's a very personal topic for me and I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to cash out on some tragedy or something. I'm really out of breath. I don't know why. I'm nervous. I haven't made a video in a while, and that is because for the past couple of months, well, since January really, well no, May of last year is when it all started, but basically my mom had been sick, really sick with cancer, and she died last month. So I've just been kind of, I just haven't really been making videos at all because I was taking care of my mom. But I just wanted to give you guys an update about what's been going on and why I've been so absent since like May or so, after my surgery. After May is when it started to get really bad with my mom. So she had lung cancer. Well, okay. So my mom got cancer for the first time really bad when I was like 13 or 14. And that was on her thyroid. I need to stop crying, hold on. So she had a tumor on her thyroid. And they just took out her whole thyroid. And then they did chemo and radiation, which was awful. But I wasn't really, I don't want to say I wasn't exposed to it, but my dad was the one who was taking care of everything. And I was in school, so I didn't really, I saw a lot of it. Like, I shaved her head when she lost her hair. And like, she had radiation on her throat, so basically it was like a sunburn on the inside of her throat, and she would have like coughing fits so bad that she would cough up blood and throw up. And like, she would throw up a lot. But my dad was there. And then it was fine until I was like 16. And that's when it came back again. And I was then the one who was the sole caretaker of my mom because my dad died really suddenly when I was 15. So I was the one who was taking care of her that time. No, wait, this is when I was 17. That's when it came back. That must be when I was, yeah. Yeah, no, I was 17 when it came back, not 16. So this was 2016. In May, she started to like cough up blood. And all the doctors like, no, it's just, radiation recall from your throat. It's just radiation from your throat. And we were like, no, this doesn't seem right. Like, she's coughing up blood. So then they finally, so they weren't really looking anywhere lower because they just did an MRI of her throat and there's nothing there. Like, oh, there's something wrong. But then they did I think it was a CAT scan of her upper body, and that's where they found, like, it was a 10 centimeter mass in her right lung. So then they did chemo radiation again. And I was with her I couldn't drive. I don't have my driver's license, so we had to Uber when she couldn't drive herself because she was too sick. And it was really bad this time around because when she lost her hair again, my dad wasn't there. And it wasn't, like when I shaved her head with my dad the first time, it was almost like fun because it was like, oh, this is fun, like we're shaving your head, ha ha ha. And we were like in the dining room and my friend was over and it was like, you know, she was doing fine, okay that day. But the second time, it was just us alone in her bathroom. Just silent, pretty much. Yeah. And she was just kind of crying. So that was in like May of last year. Cat, what are you doing? Stop. And then it just kind of got progressively worse from there. We switched oncologists after they did chemo and radiation because her insurance changed or something. And her second oncologist was really good. An oncologist, for those of you who don't know, is someone like a cancer doctor, basically. And then what he suggested to do is to do radiation and immunotherapy. And we were like, oh, okay, because the chemo radiation wasn't really working. It killed the lung tumor, but then other tumors started popping up. I think it was in her back, so like by her shoulder blades, sort of, not by her spine yet. And then we started the immunotherapy. She started the immunotherapy with radiation, and that didn't really make her feel that sick. Okay, blah blah. She had a really hard time walking as it was, just because she was so weak. Hi, cat. You can't see my cat, but she's there. Oh, maybe you will. Hello, Roxanne. You want to say hi? Okay, you're ruining my shot, miss. What's her name? Oh. So she just had a really hard time walking. Like, I had to hold her arm a lot while she was walking. And, you know, she would get out of breath a lot, and she would be nauseous a lot of the time, so she would have to be sort of drugged a lot, and then she would just be kind of like, whoa, and that wasn't really any fun. And when it got really, really bad with her, in like June or July, she would faint a lot. She fainted for the first time outside of her oncology center while we were waiting for a lift. And she kind of just sat down on a bench and passed out, and I had to like run back inside. I mean, thank God we were right across the street from a hospital. But it's still, you know, it's really scary to see your mom just pass out like that. So then she was in the hospital for a while. Like a couple days. And then another time she passed out. It was her last day of radiation, right before we were about to leave in the morning. She was almost done. And I was still in bed, and I just heard this huge boom and like glass shattering. I was like, oh, what the fuck? So I ran out of bed. And she was just passed out on the floor. And you know, I couldn't do anything. I just woke her back up and had her stay laying down and call 911. And she just had like water all over herself. The glass didn't break, but still, it was just. And she started crying because she was so close to being done. And then she was in the hospital again. And when we were in the ER, her heart was going too fast. And so they tried to slow her heart rate back down, and it wouldn't go back down, and then it started going up until like 200, 220, 225, and then I know. And then her heart just stopped. And there was a nurse there who was just telling her to keep breathing, but it's so scary just seeing your mom's heart stop, and like her face went purple, and the nurse was like yelling for the doctor, and I couldn't do anything. You know, just through this whole thing, I've just felt very powerless, and I wasn't really helping at all. So then she was in the hospital again for a couple of days, and you know, for Thanksgiving, usually she cooked, but she had a really hard time cooking. She had to like put a chair in the kitchen so she could sit and cook at the same time. But she still did it, you know, because she just didn't really want anything to be different. And then, so the day before, what's the holiday before Halloween? It's like Veterans Day or something. She had a fever, and as a cancer patient, when you have a fever, it's really dangerous, because it's a sign that either you have an infection that's going on and that can kill you because you don't have any white blood cells left to fight the sickness. So we took her to the hospital, and for some reason that ER, it was just so horrible, because what ended up happening is, at first, you know, when you arrive to the ER, they're like, okay, you can't drink anything. But my mom, because she's a cancer patient, she needs to drink, she needs to eat every couple of hours, because she starts feeling sick from all the nausea and the chemo and all the treatment and the radiation and whatever. And it took them 4 hours before they saw us, and they wouldn't let her drink anything. Like, she needs water or something. Like, oh, we can't. And the doctor had already seen her, so I don't understand why they wouldn't give her water. And she was so dried out and so weak at that point by the time they gave her water that, like, she could barely talk, and she was barely conscious, and it was horrible. And then they took her blood, and then for some reason it took another 2 hours for them to come back, and apparently the lab had, like, lost the blood, or the blood was, you know, contaminated or something, so they needed to take another blood sample and then wait a long ass time. So at this point, I was starting to, like, almost throw a fit. I'm like, no, you need to, you know, get your shit together. ER. My mom is an immune compromised person. It's like, so the protocol for cancer patients is like you have to wear a mask, you have to close the door in an ER because there's so many germs in the ER, and they like didn't do any of that. So I just thought it was really weird. And then they found out that she needed a blood transfusion and a platelet transfusion because her white blood cells were really low again, which I was like, well, duh, thank you, Captain Obvious. So they finally gave her an IV, and then what ended up happening was that they gave her the wrong platelet type and didn't pre-med her for that. So whenever you give someone a blood transfusion, you're required most of the time to pre-med them with allergy medication because your body is likely to reject the new blood they're getting. And they didn't do that for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not a doctor who works at that hospital. But, so they didn't do that. And then they gave her the wrong platelet type. And she noticed right away that something was wrong. Like, she felt really wrong. She's like, I'm getting really itchy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go outside and tell them that you don't feel well. And they're like, oh, we'll just wait like 5-10 minutes, see how she's doing. I'm like, did you give her pre-meds? They're like, no, she doesn't need it. I was like, what? So then I went back inside, and she started to get hives. And I went back outside. And they were like, oh, let's just wait another 10 minutes or so, see how she's doing. I'm like, and then she started to shake like this, like someone was grabbing her and shaking her, and her throat was closing up. I'm like, hello, you need to do something. Give her pre-meds, give her an EpiPen, I don't care, just give her something. So I threw like the biggest fit, and finally they gave her something, and then her heart rate went up so much that they couldn't stabilize her again. And I was so mad. So they couldn't stabilize her after that because her heart rate was like in the 200s, like high 200s. So then they took her to the ICU. And she was in the ICU over Halloween. She was in the ICU for like 4 days or something, or 5-6 days. I don't even remember. It was a really long time. And the ICU was horrible. It's a horrible place. And then she was released, and she was just, being sick. Then my birthday came along, and she was okay in January. And then February and March rolled around, and she was okay. And then March, April is when they did another scan, and they're like, oh, the tumors are stabilized, yay, they're cancer free. And we're like, oh my god, that's amazing, that's such good news. We were telling everybody, like, my mom is healed, like, it's just so good, this is so great. And then her oncologist is like, no, this doesn't seem right, I don't know, I'm going to look at it again. And it turned out that the lab that did her scan was looking at someone else's test results, and they fucked it up and told us that she was cancer free when she wasn't. So we lost like another month of her being able to be treated because we were told that she was cancer free when it was someone else's test results, which is ridiculous. I don't get it. I don't understand how that happens. No, someone else's garbage disposal. So then my mom decided that we were going to go to Hawaii. I think this was in like May of this year? Yeah, May seems right. So we went to Hawaii. Oh, that's my knee. And that was super, super fun. It was really fun. But then, like, she coughed up a lot of blood while we were in the car on, like, the third day we were there. Like, tissuefuls of blood. The entire car smelled like blood. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. So, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what happened was that my mom was having really bad back pain again. Like, it was so bad that she would just walk around the hotel room crying. and just like not, I couldn't do anything. I tried to, rub her back or put a cold washcloth on it. I couldn't really do anything. So then that day we went to the ER in Hawaii, which was really cool. The Hawaiian people are very good at medical things. So that was nice. I forget what they did. They did another, I think they did another scan while we were there. So then we went back home because they just gave her some like drugs and pain medicine and some lidocaine patches, and then they sent the scan results over to California. And then on the way home, she coughed up all that blood. So we ended up going back to the ER because she was coughing up so much blood, like tissuefuls. Like we had a whole plastic bag of tissues full of blood, like just dripping. It was horrible, horrible. Oh, it was awful. So then we stayed there for a while, and they gave her some blood clotting medicine or something. And then she had to stay there for a really long time because they were worried she would then develop a blood clot in her lung or something, and it was just a whole mess. So then we eventually, I think that day we went back to the hotel. I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. I think my brain is trying to block it out. I mean, that trip just went to hell after that, pretty much. It was just her in pain, not being able to walk, really coughing up blood for a week and a half. And she was already weak before that. She could barely really walk at all. And the only thing she really wanted to do while we were there was see the volcanoes. That's all she wanted. And we did do that. But she couldn't really enjoy it. I mean, I don't know. I'm just glad that she got to do that. She always thought it was so cool. This volcanoes and the jungle and, that kind of stuff. So then we fly back home, and that flight is horrible. Just one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life. Because she was just in pain the entire time because of her back. And what ended up happening was that her back pain were new tumors pressing on her nerves. So then we tried radiation again when we got back. By this time it's like June, July, and during her birthday she was doing really good. Like she was doing pretty good. They were, trying to do everything they could with the tumors. And then she noticed something else again in her throat. And so there was another tumor there. It was a different type of tumor than the other tumors that she had. And then they did a bronchoscopy. And after her bronchoscopy, they didn't give her any steroids or antibiotics or anything. So she developed a really bad infection. And we went back home, and then what ended up happening was that there was so much mucus from this infection that she couldn't swallow anything. So when she tried to swallow, she almost choked, and she threw up all over the floor. And her throat was all swollen and red. And we waited another day, and then she threw up all over the floor again and couldn't breathe and was like gasping for air and coughing. So we went back to the ER, where they were like, okay, so they did another bronchoscopy and sucked out all of the stuff that was in her throat. So they kept freezing the tumor over and over again to make sure that it didn't push into her windpipe anymore. And then what they ended up doing is they put a stent in. And and then she still had a hard time, sort of. So they did another bronchoscopy to see what was going on, and then they put another stent in, and then again they refused. Like, I told them this time, and my boyfriend was there too, and he was like, okay, you guys have to give her antibiotics right after the surgery again, because last time she had a bronchoscopy, she had an infection that almost killed her. Like, the doctor said if we waited another day, she would have died. And they're like, oh, but that's not really standard procedure, la-di-da-di-da-di. And we were like, what? No, you have to give her antibiotics. Like, she could already feel that it was happening again. So my boyfriend and I fought with these nurses all day long to get her these antibiotics. So what ended up happening is they wouldn't give it to her. So we wrote her oncologist an email, and then we had to sneak antibiotics into the hospital so she could get fucking antibiotics, or else she would have gotten an infection again and died. Because these incompetent people. Ugh. Sorry. So then, really after that whole infection fiasco, everything just started to go back downhill. For real. Like, really bad. Like, she could barely walk, and she was taking all these medications, and then she had to start doing all these breathing treatments 6 times a day. And she had to take a nebulizer with her everywhere and a bunch of different medications, and she was just coughing up mucus all the time and, like, choking on it, and it was horrible. It was just awful, awful, awful. And then in August, I think, yeah, we did another scan and saw that the cancer had metastasized into her liver, which is really, really, really bad, because once it's in a vital organ, it's kind of game over. So there wasn't really anything else the doctor could do. And it was 3 big metastazations, he said, on her liver. So we found a clinical trial in Germany, which was where my mom is from, and I can speak German fluently. So we were like, oh great, we can just stay with our family over there. So we did that, flew to Germany, and then we wanted to start the treatment. But what ended up happening is that she then developed pneumonia, and they couldn't do the treatment. So she never even had a chance to try the treatment. And while we were at that hospital, her wallet and her phone were stolen. Then she was transferred to a different part of the hospital, and that's when we found out she couldn't do the treatment at all. But I didn't understand, because I'm like, she's dying anyway, just try. But they were like, no, it could kill her faster. And then I was there for 3 weeks or so, I think, or 2 weeks. And then my mom was still in the hospital when I left. And I still feel really guilty about that. So I just feel like I left her there. But the last thing I really got to tell her was that I loved her. When I was leaving the hospital, it was kind of like, I kept going back to her once I was at the door of her hospital room, and then she started crying, so I started crying. I ran back to her. I was like, I love you. I'll be back soon with my sister, my older sister, because I flew back home alone. Because she couldn't fly. She was supposed to fly home with me after the treatment was over. And then she was there for 3 weeks or so. I don't even remember anymore. But since her phone was stolen, I couldn't really talk to her. And in that part of the hospital, they didn't have Wi-Fi or something, so she couldn't even use her tablet or whatever that she had, really, so she was just isolated. I mean, her friends who were there, who we were staying with, would visit her, and that was amazing. I stayed with them, and they're wonderful. I love them so much. and they really, really helped out a lot while we were over there. And I would talk on the phone with her through their phone, but she was just kind of too sick to talk at that point, really. So I would just talk about stuff that I was doing, like, oh, today I'm, cleaning the house and washing the laundry and all stuff that she really wanted me to do all the time. So I would just tell her that I was doing that and I was taking care of the house and the cats are good and Jacob is good, my boyfriend. And I know that made her really happy. And then we were supposed to come back and visit her and then see what happened because they had started talking to her about hospice care. My mom was like, oh, I feel like I could live for another 5-6 months or so. Like, I don't feel very sick at all. And then my sister and I were on our way back to Germany on our flight. And she passed away while we were on the plane to her. And I just feel really shit. Because when we got there, our friends who we were staying with, it happened last night. We didn't want to tell you guys where you were on the plane because that would have been the worst flight of your life. It just really sucks. Because I just feel really guilty. I feel like I left her there. All alone in that hospital. And I wanted to go home. During the whole time I was there, I just wanted to go home. And I just feel guilty. Yeah, she died on September 17th. I don't really know what else to say. Or what else there is to talk about. That's where I've been. That's what I've been up to. I want you to give your parent a hug for me. If you have parents. Yeah. Just, even if you have like a shit relationship with your parents. I don't know what I'm saying. Like, I had a really good relationship with my parents. So maybe if you have a shitty relationship with your parents, maybe there could be some way to reconcile that relationship or something. I mean, if they don't deserve it, don't. But, you're a teenager sometimes and it's just, you're like, ugh, my parents are so annoying, ugh. But you don't really know when they're gonna go. And I learned that kind of the hard way with my dad, but not so much with my mom. But I mean, it still sucks. I don't really know what else to say. don't know. I hope you have a good day. I love you all very much. I don't know when I'm going to post my next YouTube video, but I hope it's soon, and I hope it's going to be really, really fun. And I hope that my mom is proud of me. And I want to make her proud of me. So I'm going to do that. I hope you have a good day. Yeah, just give someone you love a hug for me and tell them that you love them.